to tell you something about this little girl. This little girl grew up in a small village. And no one really kept track of her date of birth because they didn't think she was important. So there was no date, month, or year. This little girl lived in a one room with her entire family, her mom, dad, older brother, and younger sister. This little girl stole food from people's homes at the middle of the night so she wouldn't go to bed hungry. This little girl sewed her shoes so she could go to school. And when she went to school, often she was beaten because she had dirty hair, she had head lice, her clothes were dirty, her nails were dirty. And her mom often told her that she was ugly and fat. And if she didn't obey, no one would ever love her. And one time, this little girl got beaten so hard that she lost her partial hearing from one of her ears because she was not obeying. She still stayed very nice and loving and caring. And when her brother, who was the love of her life, when he was tortured and electrocuted by the local police because her father made some political choices, she took care of her brother. She nursed him, she took care of him so he became healthy. She was just that kind of girl with healing hands. She had only one identity, and her identity was that she was her father's daughter. She was told what to wear. She always wore hand-me-down clothes. She was told what to think, and she was told what to eat and how much to eat. But she found joy in her village. She would catch the butterflies in the garden, and she would run around the narrow cobblestone streets in the village, and then she would play marbles. She would climb up the trees to find the juiciest mangoes. She played hide and seek in the corn maze, and she would go on the rooftop and to catch kites with her brother. She was just full of life. And one day when she came home after school, her father said to her, "We found a husband for you. He's much older than you, but he's going to take care of you for the rest of your life. But you must obey him. You must take care of his family, and you must give him children, and hopefully a son." So she marries this man, and she lives with this family, and she lives in a basement suite. And next year she gives birth to a daughter. She brought another disappointment to her new family. Immediately after her birth, the baby's birth, she was hospitalized for infection. She had this scrutinizing pain in her stomach while she lay in a cold hospital bed. She didn't have any visitors, hardly any visitors. She cried every night. And she missed her newborn baby because she hadn't seen her for many days. Her chest was sore because she hadn't nursed her baby. So she recovers and she goes home, and she realized that she's not allowed to nurse her baby. She's not allowed to play with her baby. She's not allowed to name her own baby. She wanted to leave, but she wasn't allowed to leave because if she left, she would be disowned from her entire family. And she may even get some death threats from the family for trying to ruin and break the societal rules. One day, she hears that two of her older cousins that she absolutely adored growing up, one pours the gasoline on herself and lights herself and dies in a hospital. And second cousin, she cuts her wrist, wanted to commit suicide, and was hospitalized. And both cousins were unhappy in their marriages. They did not have a choice to leave. So this young girl, who's a teen mom now, she calls her mother, and she's very unhappy. She calls her mother for help, and she said, "Mom, I am not happy. My heart aches. I'm not eating properly. I'm not sleeping. I'm depressed. What do I do?" Her mother said, "Well, if he doesn't beat you every day, I don't know what your problem is. You are not allowed to come back. Only your dead body must come back home." One day, this little girl, she's a teenager now, she gets a phone call that the love of her life, the only man she ever loved, her brother, died in a car accident. After the funeral, her whole world had fallen apart, came crashing down. After the funeral, her father pulls her aside. He says, "You know what? You are the oldest child now. You have family responsibilities. You cannot leave your husband. You must continue obeying him and his family, or there will be consequences." So this teen mom contemplated suicide. One day she found enough strength and courage. She took her infant baby in her arms and she ran away from the house and went to a shelter home. She had no family support, she had no money and no education, and here she is in the shelter home, lost, scared, suicidal. And the world was grim, and nothing seemed possible. I'm going to tell you about this young girl, actually, who lived here in Canada. This young girl went to school, and she went to college. She wanted to be a teacher. She wanted to have her master's in education because she loved working with kids with special needs. And when she was going to college, and she saw this guy, and she had a huge crush on him. And she asked him out. And they went on a date, and they fell in love. And they got married. They bought a beautiful home. And they have this child. They named the child's name Elvis's middle name, because they both loved Elvis. And they bought this beautiful home overlooking the mountains and living happy and so excited. And the marriage fell apart. But this young woman is allowed to leave her husband. This young girl goes on dates. And this young girl, relationships fail, and she's totally okay with that. So this young girl, she was driving home one day, her heart started acting weird. And the doctors had to give her pills to bring her heartbeat back to normal. She was in the hospital because her lung collapsed during the surgery, but her hospital bed was covered with flowers and friends and families visiting her, the music and good food, and the hospital was absolutely, she was there for 2 weeks, and she was happy, and she recovers. She gets her master's in education. And she has this love affair for food. So she works hard. This young woman has dreams. She's passionate. She's excited. She works hard. She finds mentors. And she starts networking. She believes in herself. She believes in her food. And someone opened a tiny door. She kicks that door. She gets right in, and she signs contracts. She wrote a first cookbook that became a national bestseller. And she wrote a second cookbook, which won an award for Canada. This is exciting. You can cheer up. So she opens restaurants, she goes around, she has 2 TV shows, not 1, 2 TV shows, airing in many countries around the world. So she, with her family, so she goes to different, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, she's launching her show, she's excited, she's on top of the world, and the Hollywood notices, and she ends up doing a Hollywood collaboration. She's walking on a red carpet with the designer's clothes and the fancy shoes, and she's walking on the red carpet, she sees Oprah Winfrey on one side, and she sees Steven Spielberg on the other side. And she talks to Helen Mirren about her cuisine. She is happy and she's living on top of her world. Everything is possible. She dreams big and she makes it happen. What if I told you this little girl in the village who was heartbroken and she was suicidal. She had a miserable life. And this other young woman who was successful and established and believed in herself, and she knew she was so beautiful. What if I told you these 2 people were one? Would you believe me if I told you this girl and this woman is me? Thank you. You're so sweet. I have had many battles in my life. Every one of you in this room is also battling something. Everyone you know, everyone you met, everyone, your colleagues, your workers, your neighbors, your relatives, everyone is battling something. And these battles become our narratives. Think about a person who's sitting right next to you right now. Think about the person who's sitting in front of you. They are also battling something. Someone is battling how to lose weight. And someone may have cancer. Someone may know someone who died from cancer. Someone may be mourning the loss of a loved one. Someone maybe is fighting to keep their relationship together because marriage is falling apart. And someone is living from paycheck to paycheck and is worried about their next bill that they have to pay. Someone is worried about because their child has a drug abuse. And someone hasn't told their sexuality to their family members yet. We are all going through some kinds of battles. But these battles do not have to define you. What we do with these battles becomes our narrative. I believe that we all have a choice. And once you have a choice, once you know that you have a choice, we can rewrite our narrative. You have a choice to either quit, or you have a choice to keep fighting. Our battles, we can quit our battles, or we can just keep going at them. And these battles can be internal or external. My internal battle all my life has been that I was not beautiful enough. And no man would ever love me for who I am. And my external battles is I still deal with on a daily basis with my traveling schedule, with my media world, my children, my health, my fitness. We all go through these battles. And one thing I learned, that failure is the best thing that ever happened to me in my personal and in my professional life. Failure is a way of telling you that it is time to change your narrative. It's the universe way of saying is that it is time to flip the page. You know, sometimes people tell me, they're like, oh, you know, you were just lucky. You were at the right place at the right time to meeting Oprah Winfrey or writing cookbooks, national best-selling cookbooks. I said, that's true, I really did get lucky. I did. But what if that gloomy afternoon, if I didn't take my daughter, and if I didn't leave that home to go to shelter home because I was so scared, because I didn't believe in myself, because I was so scared I had a fear of this unknown, what's gonna happen? What if I didn't leave that day? Because I was freaked out. What if I didn't leave that day? And what if I continued living the narrative that my father had written for me? I would have committed suicide. I'm sure I would have committed suicide. Or I would have been still living in that house, in that miserable, miserable house. But I chose to rewrite my own story. I chose to rewrite my own narrative. And I'm going to tell you, it was not easy. I did not take an easy path. My parents actually did disown me. My parents didn't talk to me for 20 years. I started cleaning people's homes. And I started working as a dishwasher. I had many jobs, and at nighttime I would learn English. But that day, when I went to shelter home, until today, every single day, I lived how I wanted to live. And I was happy doing those dishes. I was happy cleaning people's homes because I made that choice. I wrote that story for myself. You can write your narrative. Once you started writing your narrative, you can start living your life. You can find the courage within yourself. You can start taking risks. You can fight for your own life and fight for your own destiny and quit the life that's given to you by other people. Quit that life and choose your own battle. Write your own narrative. And the fascinating thing about narrative is that when you write your own narrative, it doesn't stop. It continues changing. My narrative is still going. It's going to continue going until you are dead. We have time. We can change our narratives. You can turn the page. You can turn the page, and I turn the page, and I am a living proof of that. Just for a moment, I want you to think about the battle you are having right now. The personal battle. The professional battle. Think about it. And I promise you that if you wrote your own narrative, if you wrote your own story, it's not just up in here, you're doing it. I promise you, it's going to lead you to your happiness. You can actually walk out of the door today, and you can flip the page. You can begin your own narrative. You can get busy living, or you can get busy dying. I chose to get busy living. Thank you.